I am Angela Martinez, 34 years old, and until 40 minutes ago, I was the Deputy Marketing Director at Horizon Software Solutions. Now I am being escorted out by security, my personal items, stuffed into a cardboard box. The digital display in the lobby flashes the news: Isabella Wilson, $100 million in sales. My boss Robert smirks as I pass. Isabella is the future of this company, he says, his voice dripping with satisfaction. 8 years of my life gone in an instant. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how the tables turned dramatically. Horizon Software Solutions is not just any tech company. With its gleaming glass headquarters towering over downtown, it represents the pinnacle of business-to-business software development. The lobby alone costs more than most houses, with Italian marble floors, avant-garde artwork, and that massive digital display board showcasing company achievements. When I first walked through those doors 8 years ago, fresh from completing my MBA at Northwestern, I felt both intimidated and exhilarated. This was where I would build my career. I started as a marketing specialist, one of 12 in the department. What set me apart was my analytical approach to marketing. While others focused solely on creative aspects, I developed comprehensive data-driven strategies that connected marketing efforts directly to sales outcomes. My first campaign increased conversion rates by 27%, catching the attention of upper management. By year 3, I was promoted to team lead. By year 5, senior marketing manager. My crowning achievement came during my 6th year, when I spearheaded the Enterprise Evolution campaign that increased our enterprise client base by 35%. That campaign won industry awards and positioned Horizon as the go-to solution for Fortune 500 companies. 3 months later, I was promoted to Deputy Marketing Director, second only to the Chief Marketing Officer. Robert Wilson, our 58-year-old CEO, became something of a mentor to me during this ascent. With his silver hair, tailored suits, and commanding presence, Robert embodied the successful tech executive. He had built Horizon from a small startup to a major player in the industry. He seemed to appreciate my work ethic and results-oriented approach. Angela, you remind me of myself 20 years ago, he told me once, over our quarterly strategy lunch. You have that rare combination of creative thinking and business acumen. Our lunches became a regular occurrence. We would discuss marketing trends, company strategy, and my career trajectory. He introduced me to key clients and included me in high-level meetings. When I proposed restructuring the marketing department to better align with sales objectives, Robert gave me his full support. My team became my second family. Samantha Chen, 35, managed our content strategy with remarkable precision. Her blog posts and white papers consistently generated the highest quality leads. Marcus Johnson, 29, was our SEO wizard, constantly finding ways to outmaneuver our competitors in search rankings. Lauren Thompson, 31, transformed our social media presence from forgettable to industry-leading. And Jason Parker, 27, our data analyst, could extract actionable insights from the most complex datasets. Together we worked long hours, celebrated wins, and supported each other through challenges. We were more than colleagues. We were a cohesive unit with a shared mission. My personal life admittedly took a back seat to my career ambitions. My Upper East Side apartment, while stylish, often felt more like a place to sleep than a home. Most evenings found me still at the office refining strategies or preparing presentations. Weekends were for catching up on industry reading or attending networking events. Dating happened sporadically, but no relationship lasted long enough to become serious. Horizon was my priority, my passion, my purpose. The unspoken promise was that I would eventually step into the CMO position when Patricia Reynolds retired. At 62, Patricia had already started discussing her retirement plans. Robert had hinted multiple times that I was being groomed for the role. "Keep doing what you are doing, Angela," he said during one of our lunches. "Patricia is thinking about retiring in the next 18 months, and the CMO office would look good with your name on the door." I redoubled my efforts after that conversation. Every campaign became an opportunity to prove I was ready for the top marketing position. Every presentation to the executive team was meticulously prepared. Every client interaction was carefully cultivated. I was building not just a career, but a legacy at Horizon. The marketing department under my leadership became the company standard for excellence. Other departments studied our project management approach. Sales teams requested our input on client pitches. Even the product development team consulted us on user experience design. My annual reviews consistently rated me as exceeding expectations. My bonus increases reflected my value to the company. Robert often referenced my team's work in company-wide meetings as examples of innovation and execution excellence. I believed, perhaps naively, that merit and results would determine my future at Horizon. I had the track record, the respect of my peers, and seemingly the support of the CEO. The path forward appeared clear and certain. That certainty lasted until the day Isabella Wilson walked into our office. Isabella Wilson arrived at Horizon on a Tuesday morning in March. The first indication something significant was happening came when Robert called an impromptu all-hands meeting in the main conference room. He stood at the front, uncharacteristically nervous, his usual confident demeanor replaced with an almost boyish excitement. "I am thrilled to introduce the newest member of our executive team, Robert," announced, gesturing toward a young woman standing beside him. "Isabella Wilson, our new business development director." Isabella, 27, had a poised confidence that seemed practiced rather than earned. With her designer outfit, perfectly styled hair, and Harvard MBA, she looked like she had stepped out of a corporate recruitment brochure. What she did not have, as whispers around the office quickly established, was relevant experience. "She just graduated last year," Samantha whispered to me during the introduction. Word is, she worked at a boutique consulting firm for 6 months before this. What Samantha tactfully avoided mentioning was the obvious: Isabella Wilson shared a last name with our CEO. The connection was confirmed when Robert proudly added, "Some of you may have guessed that Isabella is my daughter, but I want to assure everyone that she earned this position through her exceptional qualifications and fresh perspective." The skeptical expressions around the room told a different story. A director-level position typically required at least 8 to 10 years of progressive experience. Isabella had barely entered the professional world. Our first department meeting with Isabella present revealed the challenges ahead. When discussing our upcoming product launch strategy, Isabella interrupted my presentation. "This approach seems very conventional," she said, studying her manicured nails. "We should be focusing on disruptive strategies. Maybe a flash mob marketing campaign or a viral TikTok challenge." I tried to explain diplomatically that our enterprise clients valued stability and professionalism over viral trends, and that our data showed targeted content marketing delivered the highest ROI for our demographic. "That is the problem with established companies," Isabella countered. "Everyone is afraid to take risks. My professors at Harvard emphasized the importance of disruptive thinking." I expected Robert to mediate the discussion, or at least acknowledge the impracticality of Isabella's suggestions. Instead, he nodded enthusiastically. "Isabella brings a fresh perspective we desperately need," he said. "Angela, please work with Isabella to incorporate some of her innovative ideas into the campaign." That meeting marked the beginning of a shift in dynamics. Robert, once my greatest advocate, began to subtly distance himself. Our strategy lunches were canceled or rescheduled, then eventually stopped altogether. Meanwhile, Isabella was frequently seen leaving his office or accompanying him to executive dinners. In meetings, Robert increasingly deferred to Isabella's opinions, even when they contradicted established best practices or data. When I presented our quarterly results, showing a 17% increase in qualified leads, Robert seemed unimpressed. When Isabella suggested a superficial redesign of our website against all user experience data, Robert immediately approved the $50,000 budget. "Is it just me, or has Robert completely changed?" Samantha asked during a rare coffee break. "Yesterday, he shot down my content calendar that we have been planning for months because Isabella thought it was too boring." "Be careful," she added, lowering her voice. "Isabella has been meeting with Robert about reorganizing several departments. Your name came up." I tried to establish a professional relationship with Isabella, inviting her to coffee to discuss how our departments could collaborate effectively. She accepted but arrived 20 minutes late, spent most of the meeting on her phone, and left early for a more important engagement. When the company announced the next-gen solution, our most ambitious product launch in years, I saw it as an opportunity to reassert my value. This revolutionary software platform could potentially double our market share if marketed correctly. I spent weekends developing a comprehensive launch strategy, complete with market analysis, competitive positioning, and ROI projections. The executive team meeting to discuss the next-gen launch should have been my moment to shine. Instead, Robert interrupted my presentation after just 5 minutes. Before Angela continues, I want to share some exciting news, he announced. Given the importance of this launch, I have decided that Isabella will co-lead the project with Angela, bringing her innovative perspective to our most important initiative. The room fell silent. Co-leading a project with someone who had been with the company for less than 3 months was unprecedented. More troubling was the realization that half of my authority had just been stripped away in front of the entire executive team. Isabella beamed. I have so many disruptive ideas for this launch. It is time Horizon stepped into the 21st century of marketing. As the meeting adjourned, Robert pulled Isabella into his office, leaving me standing alone with my carefully prepared presentation materials. The message was clear: my experience and track record were no longer enough. The future belonged to Isabella Wilson, not because of her qualifications, but because of her last name. The next-gen project consumed my life. I arrived at the office by 6:30 each morning, often not leaving until 9 or 10 at night. Weekends became extensions of the work week. My apartment gathered dust as I poured every ounce of energy into ensuring the launch would succeed, despite the complications. Isabella, meanwhile, kept banker's hours. She would stroll in around 9:30, take extended lunch breaks, and rarely attend the technical briefings crucial to understanding the product we were marketing. Yet in planning meetings, she would confidently override decisions my team had labored over for days. "These messaging points are too technical," she declared, flipping through the market positioning document my team had spent 3 weeks creating. "No one cares about technical specifications. We need emotional appeal. Stories about how next-gen transforms businesses." Actually, I countered, sliding a research report across the table. Our survey of 500 CTOs indicates that technical capabilities are their primary consideration when evaluating enterprise software. They need specific information about integration capabilities, security protocols, and scalability. Robert, who had taken to attending our marketing meetings since Isabella joined the project, frowned at me. "Isabella has a point, Angela. We should listen to fresh perspectives instead of doing things the same old way." The battle lines were drawn over every aspect of the campaign. I advocated for targeted digital advertising to reach decision-makers, backed by case studies and white papers. Isabella pushed for splashy events with celebrities and social media influencers who had no relevance to our business clients. I wanted to emphasize our 15-year track record of reliability and customer support. Isabella insisted we position ourselves as disruptors, despite the fact that enterprise clients generally avoid disruptive vendors for mission-critical systems. The marketing plan I had meticulously developed was dismantled piece by piece. Isabella would emerge from private meetings with Robert announcing changes to strategies we had already finalized. Budget was redirected from proven channels to experimental approaches with questionable ROI. Jason came to my office one evening, closing the door behind him. "You need to know something," he said, his voice low. "Isabella has been meeting individually with members of our team, asking questions about your management style and decision-making process." "What kind of questions?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "Whether you are open to new ideas, if you micromanage, if people feel you are holding the team back." He hesitated. She implied there might be leadership changes coming, and that people who support her vision would be recognized. The team began to fracture. Lauren, who had initially been skeptical of Isabella, suddenly became her advocate after a private lunch. Samantha remained loyal, as did Jason, but others began to distance themselves from me, sensing a shift in the power dynamics. The product launch event epitomized the new reality. The original plan had me delivering the marketing strategy presentation with Isabella introducing one segment. When the agenda was finalized, Isabella was listed as the primary presenter, with my role reduced to introducing her. During the event, Isabella stood center stage, confidently presenting marketing concepts developed by my team, as if they were her own innovations. Robert beamed from the front row, occasionally glancing in my direction, with what looked like satisfaction at my diminished role. Despite the behind-the-scenes chaos, the next-gen campaign launched with considerable fanfare. Industry publications covered the release extensively, partly due to the relationships I had cultivated with key journalists over years. Major clients I had personally worked with for half a decade signed on for the new platform. Sales began to climb. The initial projections were exceeded within the first month. By the second month, we had reached 50% of our quarterly goal. The momentum continued building as my long-term strategies, the ones Isabella had not managed to completely override, began to deliver results. As the numbers grew, so did Isabella's public profile. She was featured in Technology Today as a marketing wonderkind. Business Insider included her in their 30 Under 30 list. At an industry conference, she delivered a keynote on disruptive marketing in enterprise software, using case studies from campaigns I had designed years before she joined the company. My name appeared nowhere in the press releases. My team received no public recognition. In company communications, the success was attributed to Isabella Wilson's innovative approach and fresh strategies that broke with convention. The ultimate insult came when I overheard Robert on the phone with a journalist. "Yes, Isabella completely revitalized our marketing approach," he said. "Before she joined, we were stuck in outdated methodologies. She single-handedly transformed our strategy, and the results speak for themselves." I stood frozen outside his office, the printout of the latest sales figures in my hand, showing we were approaching the $100 million mark, largely due to client relationships I had nurtured for years. In that moment, I realized no amount of success would change the narrative. Isabella would receive the credit regardless of her actual contribution, and my years of work would be erased from the company's story. The quarterly performance review with Robert was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Normally, these meetings were straightforward affirmations of my department's contributions, with constructive discussions about future goals. This time, Robert's assistant scheduled it in his private conference room, rather than his office, a subtle but noticeable change. I arrived 5 minutes early, armed with comprehensive performance data. The sales figures for NextGen had reached $98 million and were projected to cross the $100 million mark by the following week. Customer retention rates were at a record high of 94%. Lead generation had increased by 42%. By every measurable metric, the marketing strategies were exceeding expectations. Robert entered precisely on time, his expression unreadable. He did not shake my hand as usual, but gestured for me to sit across from him at the long conference table. "Angela," he began, his tone surprisingly formal, "we need to discuss some concerns about your performance over the past quarter." I blinked in surprise. "Concerns? The NextGen campaign is breaking all company records. We are about to hit $100 million in sales 3 weeks ahead of projections." Robert waved his hand dismissively. "Raw numbers do not tell the complete story. There have been issues with your management approach and ability to embrace innovation." For the next 20 minutes, Robert outlined a litany of criticisms that bore no resemblance to reality. I was resistant to new ideas, territorially defensive, and lacking vision. The successful elements of the campaign were attributed to Isabella's breakthrough thinking, while any challenges were blamed on my interference and outdated methodologies. But the content strategy was my design, I protested, pulling up the original marketing plan on my tablet. These customer journey mappings, the account-based marketing approach, the technical webinar series, all of these were developed by my team months before Isabella joined the project. "This is exactly the problem," Robert said, his voice hardening. "You are unable to share credit or work collaboratively. Multiple team members have expressed concerns about your territorial behavior." "Which team members?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "That is confidential," he replied. "What matters is that Isabella has demonstrated exceptional leadership throughout this project, despite your efforts to undermine her." My heart pounded as the true purpose of the meeting became clear. This was not a performance review. It was a pretext. "The board has been extremely impressed with Isabella's contributions." Robert continued, his tone softening slightly. "They have approved my recommendation to create a new chief marketing officer position, which Isabella will assume effective immediately." The room seemed to tilt. The CMO position long promised to me handed to his daughter after less than 6 months with the company. "Given this restructuring," Robert continued, "we need to discuss your role moving forward. You have 2 options. You can report directly to Isabella as a marketing director with a slight adjustment in compensation to reflect the reduced responsibilities. Or if you prefer, we can create a lateral position as director of traditional marketing channels." Both options represented significant demotions. Both would require reporting to Isabella. Both were designed to be unacceptable. "You promised me the CMO position," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I have delivered consistent results for 8 years. I built the marketing department from the ground up." The current campaign success is based on strategies I developed. That is your perspective, Robert replied coldly. Others see it differently. Others, or just Isabella, I asked. Robert's expression darkened. Be careful, Angela. This attitude is precisely why you are not CMO material. Isabella understands modern marketing and has the vision this company needs moving forward. She has been here less than 6 months, I said, my professional composure finally cracking. She has no relevant experience. The only reason she has this job is because she is your daughter. The conference room fell silent, Robert's face flushed with anger. I had hoped you would handle this transition professionally, he said, standing abruptly. Clearly that was too optimistic. Your insubordination and jealousy have made my decision much easier. He pressed a button on the conference phone. Sandra, please send security to conference room A and have HR prepare the termination paperwork for Angela Martinez effective immediately. My mind reeled. You are firing me. On what grounds? Cultural fit, Robert said flatly. Horizon needs team players who embrace innovation and change. Your resistance to new leadership and unwillingness to adapt have made it clear you no longer align with our company values. 2 security guards arrived with unsettling speed, suggesting this outcome had been planned in advance. I was instructed to surrender my company ID and laptop immediately. I would be escorted to my office to collect personal items, then immediately off the premises. My access to company systems would be terminated within the hour. In a daze, I packed photos, awards, and 8 years of memories into a cardboard box, while the guards watched impassively. Samantha tried to approach, but was waved away by security. Other colleagues averted their eyes as I was marched through the open office. The final indignity came as we passed through the lobby. The massive digital display visible to everyone entering the building flashed a congratulatory message. Congratulations to Isabella Wilson and the Next Gen team for reaching $100 million in sales, a new Horizon record. Robert stood near the entrance, watching my exit with Isabella beside him, her expression a mixture of triumph and feigned sympathy. As I passed, Robert could not resist one final twist of the knife. Isabella is the future of this company, he said loudly enough for nearby employees to hear. Some people simply cannot adapt to progress. The security guards escorted me to the street where I stood, holding my box of personal items, watching the glass doors close on nearly a decade of my professional life. 8 years of dedication erased in less than an hour, replaced by a narrative that rendered my contributions invisible and painted me as the villain in my own story. The Uber ride home passed in a blur. The driver attempted conversation, but my one-word responses eventually discouraged him. I stared out the window at the city streets, feeling strangely disconnected from the bustling Friday afternoon activity. How could everything continue normally when my entire professional identity had just been shattered? My apartment felt foreign when I arrived, like walking into a hotel room rather than a home. I set the box of office belongings on the kitchen counter and stood motionless, unsure what to do next. For 8 years, my evenings had been filled with work emails, strategy planning, and preparation for the next day. Now there was just silence and an emptiness that seemed to expand with each passing minute. I did not cry immediately. The shock created a protective numbness that carried me through the mechanical process of changing clothes, ordering food I had no appetite for, and pouring a glass of wine I could not taste. It was only when I spotted my Horizon Company Award for Marketing Excellence on the bookshelf that the reality crashed through my defenses. The tears came in waves, accompanied by anger, disbelief, and a crushing sense of injustice. 8 years of 60-hour weeks, sacrificed weekends, postponed vacations, and delayed personal relationships, all erased in a single afternoon. Replaced by a narrative that not only denied my contributions, but painted me as an obstacle to progress. My phone buzzed with a text from Samantha. Just heard. This is complete BS. Call me when you can. Minutes later, another message appeared, this time from Marcus. What happened is not right. The team is in shock. Lauren texted next. They announced your departure as a resignation to pursue other opportunities. People are not buying it. These small gestures of solidarity provided momentary comfort, but the night stretched endlessly ahead. I alternated between tearful breakdowns, periods of numb disbelief, and bursts of frantic planning for what to do next. Sleep came in fitful patches, interrupted by dreams of walking through the Horizon office while everyone pretended not to see me. Saturday morning brought no relief. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on every decision. Should I immediately update my LinkedIn profile, begin reaching out to my network, take time to process before jumping into a job search? The simplest choices felt overwhelming. Around noon, my phone rang with a call from Jason. "Angela, are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "I have been better," I admitted, still trying to process everything. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice. "Something weird is happening here." They called an emergency Saturday meeting for the marketing team. Isabella is having everyone review all the next-gen materials to, and I quote, "remove outdated approaches and update the messaging to align with our innovative vision." "They are erasing my work," I said, the realization hitting like a physical blow. "Not just that," Jason continued. "They are removing your name from everything. The campaign strategy documents, the market analysis reports, even the client presentation decks. It is like they are trying to pretend you were never involved." After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen counter, anger gradually replacing despair. This was more than unfair. It was unethical, a deliberate attempt to rewrite history and claim credit for work they had not done. Sunday brought an unexpected lifeline. Katie Reynolds, Horizon's former CFO who had left the company 2 years earlier, reached out by email suggesting we meet for coffee. I had always respected Katie, but had not been close to her during our time at Horizon. We met at a quiet cafe in Chelsea, far from the Horizon offices. Katie looked relaxed and healthy in a way she never had at the company, the perpetual stress lines around her eyes notably absent. "I heard what happened," she said, after we exchanged greetings. "Unfortunately, it sounds familiar." Over the next hour, Katie shared her own experience. 3 years ago, Isabella had expressed interest in finance. Within months, Robert began questioning Katie's methods, criticizing her conservative financial projections, and excluding her from key meetings. When Isabella completed her MBA, Robert created a new position for her in the finance department. 6 months later, Katie was offered an early retirement package. "I took the package because I was close to retirement anyway," Katie explained. "But I always regretted not fighting back against the narrative they created. They made it seem like I was outdated when in reality my caution had kept the company financially stable through 2 market downturns." Her story confirmed what I had suspected. This was Robert's pattern, clearing the path for his daughter by removing those who might overshadow her. "What are you planning to do?" Katie asked. "I honestly do not know," I admitted. "The industry is small. Robert has connections everywhere. I am worried about what he is saying about me to others." Katie nodded sympathetically. "That is a valid concern, but you have something valuable, the truth, and evidence to support it." Her words sparked an idea. That evening, I began meticulously documenting my contributions to the Next Gen campaign and all major marketing initiatives over the past 8 years. I created a timeline of the campaign development, noting when key strategies were implemented and the resulting metrics. Monday morning brought unexpected support. Jason called again, this time from outside the office. "I downloaded copies of all the original marketing plans, strategy documents, and performance reports before they could alter them," he said. "I know it might violate some policies, but what they are doing is wrong. I will send everything to your personal email." Samantha contributed email threads, showing my leadership on key decisions. Marcus provided documentation of how my original SEO strategy had driven 60% of the qualified leads. Even Lauren, who had been briefly swayed by Isabella, sent screenshots of the original content calendar that Isabella was now claiming as her own innovation. Armed with this evidence, I spent Monday and Tuesday creating a comprehensive portfolio documenting my actual role in Horizon's marketing success. Not for revenge, but for self-preservation. If Robert was actively undermining my professional reputation, I needed irrefutable evidence of my contributions. I also began cautiously reaching out to my network, only to discover that rumors about my departure had already spread. 2 previously scheduled interviews were suddenly canceled without explanation. A former colleague, now at a competitor, mentioned hearing I had been difficult to work with and resistant to innovation. The narrative was spreading just as I had feared. My 8-year track record of success was being overshadowed by a fabricated story of incompetence and obstruction. The injustice of it fueled a determination I had not felt since the initial shock of being fired. This was no longer just about getting another job. It was about reclaiming my professional reputation and standing up for the truth. I would not allow 8 years of dedication and achievement to be erased by corporate politics and nepotism. On Wednesday morning, as I updated my portfolio with additional documentation from former colleagues, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail, assuming it was another recruiter about to cancel an interview. Something made me answer instead. "Is this Angela Martinez?" a deep, authoritative voice asked. "Yes, this is Angela," I replied cautiously. "This is William Montgomery, chairman of the board at Horizon Software Solutions. I would like to speak with you about some recent developments at the company. Are you available for dinner this evening?" William Montgomery was not what I expected. In my imagination, the chairman of Horizon's board would be another version of Robert, perhaps older and more distinguished, but cut from the same corporate cloth. The man waiting for me at a corner table in Le Bernardin was different, a stark contrast to Robert's polished executive persona. In his mid-60s, William had the weathered look of someone who had built his success from the ground up rather than inherited it. His suit was expensive but not flashy, his handshake firm, his gaze direct and evaluating. He did not stand on ceremony, skipping the small talk after brief introductions. "I appreciate you agreeing to meet me, especially given the circumstances of your departure," he said as we settled at the table. "I will be direct, Miss Martinez. The board has concerns about recent management decisions at Horizon, particularly regarding the next-gen campaign and subsequent personnel changes." I maintained a neutral expression despite my racing thoughts. "What specific concerns does the board have, Mr. Montgomery?" "Please call me William," he said, studying me carefully. "Several things have come to our attention. First, while the next-gen campaign has indeed reached the $100 million milestone, customer satisfaction metrics have begun declining sharply. Second, several key clients have specifically asked to speak with you about ongoing implementation, only to learn you are no longer with the company. Third, and most troubling, we have received multiple anonymous communications from Horizon employees regarding what they describe as a toxic shift in company culture." He paused as the waiter approached. After ordering, William continued, his tone measured. "I would like to hear your perspective on the next-gen campaign, your role in it, and the circumstances of your termination. I am not asking you to speculate or make accusations, just the facts as you experience them." For the next hour, I provided a detailed account of the campaign development, Isabella's arrival, and the gradual undermining of my position. I stuck to verifiable facts and avoided emotional characterizations. I did not mention the evidence my former team had provided, wanting to protect them from potential retaliation. William listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions that revealed his sharp understanding of both marketing strategy and corporate dynamics. As I finished my account, he nodded thoughtfully. "Your version aligns with information we have gathered from other sources," he said. "What it does not align with is Robert's explanation of recent events." "May I ask what explanation he provided?" I inquired carefully. "According to Robert, you were resistant to innovation, territorial with your team, and ultimately unable to adapt to new leadership dynamics. He credits Isabella almost exclusively for the next-gen campaign success, describing your contribution as implementing basic elements of her vision." The description was so contrary to reality that I almost laughed. Instead, I maintained my professional composure. "I understand why he would characterize events that way," I said diplomatically. "It supports the narrative that has been established." William's expression shifted slightly, a hint of respect in his eyes at my restraint. "Miss Martinez, Angela, let me be transparent about the board's position. Robert Wilson has been an effective CEO in many respects. Under his leadership, Horizon has grown significantly. However, several board members and major shareholders have expressed concerns about his recent management decisions, particularly those involving his daughter." He leaned forward slightly. "The $100 million sales figure is impressive, but early data suggests it may not be sustainable. Customer complaints have increased 23% since the campaign launched. Implementation issues are not being adequately addressed, and internally employee satisfaction scores have dropped to their lowest point in 5 years." I was not aware of those metrics, I admitted. "Few people are. Robert has been selective about what information reaches the board." William took a sip of water before continuing. Yesterday, I received a detailed analysis of the next-gen campaign from an anonymous source within the company. It documented the original marketing strategy, subsequent modifications, and the actual sources of the campaign's success. It painted a very different picture than what Robert has presented to the board. My mind immediately went to Jason, whose data analysis skills would make such a report possible. I kept my expression neutral, not wanting to implicate anyone. The board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning, William continued. We will be discussing leadership concerns and potential restructuring. Before making any decisions, I wanted to hear directly from you. I appreciate that opportunity, I said carefully. May I ask why my perspective is relevant to the board's decisions? I am no longer with the company. William studied me for a long moment before responding. Because we are considering asking you to return to Horizon in a new capacity. The statement caught me completely off guard. Return to Horizon, after everything that had happened. What capacity would that be? I asked, struggling to maintain my composure. Senior Creative Director, reporting directly to the board rather than to Robert. You would oversee the creative and strategic direction of all major marketing initiatives, including ongoing management of the next-gen campaign. The offer was unexpected and complicated. On one hand, it represented validation and an opportunity to reclaim my professional standing. On the other, the prospect of returning to Horizon facing Robert and Isabella daily seemed emotionally daunting. This would be contingent on the board's decisions tomorrow, of course, William added. But we would also like your assistance with an internal review of recent management practices and marketing expenditures. I understood the subtext. They wanted me to help them build a case regarding Robert's leadership and potentially questionable decisions. I would need to consider any offer carefully, I said, and I would have some conditions of my own. Which are? William asked, seeming unsurprised. First, public recognition of my team's contributions to the next-gen campaign and other successful initiatives. Second, structural changes to ensure a healthier work environment and merit-based advancement. Third, protection from potential retaliation. William nodded. Those are reasonable conditions, ones the board would likely support. The shareholders' primary concern is company performance and stability. If Robert's management decisions are threatening, those priorities changes will be necessary. As we concluded our dinner, William handed me his business card with his personal number written on the back. I cannot make promises about tomorrow's outcome, he said, but I can tell you that several board members share my concerns. We value talent and results over family connections. Think about the offer and be prepared for a call tomorrow afternoon. I left the restaurant feeling a complex mixture of emotions, vindication anxiety, and a cautious hope that perhaps justice might prevail after all. Whatever the board decided, the simple fact that they had sought my perspective suggested that Robert's narrative was already beginning to unravel. That night, I carefully considered my options. Returning to Horizon would be challenging, but also an opportunity to correct the record and protect the careers of team members who had remained loyal. Declining would mean walking away from 8 years of building something valuable, allowing Isabella and Robert to rewrite history unchallenged. By morning, my decision was made. If offered the position, I would accept not out of revenge or desperation, but because the work and the people at Horizon mattered to me. I had built something worth fighting for, and I would not abandon it without standing up for the truth. The call from William came at 3:15 the following afternoon. The board has made its decision, he said without preamble. We would like you to return as Senior Creative Director effective immediately. Can you start tomorrow? Walking back into Horizon's lobby the next morning felt surreal. The same security guard who had escorted me out 5 days earlier now nodded respectfully as William Montgomery personally met me at the entrance. The digital display that had announced Isabella's triumph now showed the company's stock price, which I noticed had declined 7% over the past week. There will be a leadership meeting at 9, William informed me as we rode the elevator. The board has implemented several changes that will be announced then. In the meantime, I have had IT set up your new office on the executive floor. My new office, I discovered, was larger than my previous one and located directly across from the boardroom, a clear statement about my new position in the company hierarchy. On my desk sat a formal appointment letter outlining my responsibilities, compensation, and direct reporting line to the board. At precisely 9, the company's senior leadership gathered in the main conference room. The tension was palpable. Robert sat at the head of the table, his typically confident demeanor replaced by a tightly controlled rigidity. Isabella sat beside him, her expression fluctuating between confusion and concern. The shock on both their faces when I entered alongside William was momentarily satisfying, though I maintained a professional demeanor. Robert's complexion paled while Isabella's eyes widened in disbelief. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," William began once everyone was seated. "The board has been conducting a comprehensive review of company operations and has decided to implement several organizational changes effective immediately." He outlined the changes methodically. Robert would be transitioning from CEO to executive advisor, a position with significantly reduced authority. Day-to-day operations would temporarily be managed by the board, while an executive search for a new CEO was conducted. Additionally, William continued his tone. "Matter of fact, Isabella Wilson will be reassigned as Director of Public Relations, a role better aligned with her experience and skills." Isabella's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Robert started to protest but fell silent when William raised his hand slightly. "Angela Martinez will be returning to Horizon as Senior Creative Director, overseeing all marketing and creative strategies. She will lead the newly established Innovation Division and report directly to the board." William then addressed the elephant in the room. "These changes reflect the board's commitment to merit-based leadership and sustainable growth strategies. Recent management decisions have raised concerns about governance and strategic direction. These restructuring measures aim to address those concerns and strengthen Horizon's market position." The meeting concluded with William announcing a company-wide gathering later that afternoon to communicate the changes to all employees. As people filed out, Robert approached me, his expression a mixture of anger and calculation. "This is temporary," he said quietly. "The board is overreacting to normal business fluctuations. Once things stabilize, they will realize their mistake." "Perhaps," I replied calmly. "In the meantime, I look forward to working with the Innovation Division to address the 23% increase in customer complaints since the next-gen launch." His slight flinch confirmed he had not known I was aware of those numbers. Without another word, he turned and left Isabella following close behind. The company announcement that afternoon was met with mixed reactions. Some employees seemed concerned about the leadership changes, while others, particularly within the marketing department, could barely contain their relief. Samantha, Marcus, and Jason immediately volunteered to join the new Innovation Division. In the following weeks, I focused on 3 priorities: stabilizing client relationships that had frayed during the transition, rebuilding team morale, and implementing a more collaborative, merit-based culture within my division. We revised the next-gen implementation strategy to address customer concerns and developed a transparent system for recognizing individual contributions to projects. My relationship with Robert remained strictly professional. He seemed to age years within weeks, his influence visibly diminishing as the board took a more active role in company governance. Isabella surprisingly approached her new role with unexpected diligence, perhaps recognizing that her previous advancement had been built on shaky ground. 3 months after my return, customer satisfaction scores began to improve. Employee retention stabilized. The next-gen platform, with its implementation issues addressed, started receiving positive industry reviews. The board appointed a new CEO, Patricia Blackwell, an experienced technology executive with a reputation for ethical leadership and employee development. During this transition period, I learned valuable lessons about myself and the business world. I discovered that my worth was not defined by a title or one person's approval. I learned that integrity and expertise eventually reveal themselves even when temporarily overshadowed by politics and favoritism. Most importantly, I learned that standing up for oneself does not require becoming bitter or vengeful. Throughout the ordeal, I had maintained my professionalism and focus on what truly mattered: the quality of our work and the well-being of the team. One afternoon, 6 months after my return, I encountered Isabella alone in the break room. The awkwardness between us had never fully dissipated, but something in her demeanor seemed different. "Your presentation to the client yesterday was really good," she said, surprising me with what appeared to be genuine admiration. "The way you handled their implementation concerns was impressive." "Thank you," I replied, genuinely appreciative of the acknowledgement. "I know we will probably never be friends," she continued, "but I want you to know that I am learning a lot from watching how you work. The way you lead your team, how you solve problems, it is different from what my father taught me. It was the closest thing to an apology I would likely ever receive, and I recognized the courage it took for her to say even this much. Leadership is a journey I offered. We all have different lessons to learn along the way. As she nodded and turned to leave, I realized that this too was part of my own healing process. The anger and resentment that had once consumed me had gradually been replaced by something more valuable: wisdom, resilience, and a deeper understanding of my own strength. The experience had changed me fundamentally. I became more attuned to office dynamics, more deliberate in documenting contributions, and more intentional about mentoring others. I created a leadership program specifically designed to identify and develop talent based on merit rather than connections. And I made a point of publicly recognizing team achievements, ensuring that credit was given where it was truly due. The corporate world is rarely a perfect meritocracy. Connections, politics, and favoritism exist in every organization. But I learned that integrity, excellence, and persistence create their own kind of power, one that may not always win in the short term, but proves invaluable in the long run. Have you ever faced a situation where your contributions were overlooked or someone else took credit for your work? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more professional journey stories. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder that sometimes justice does eventually prevail in the workplace. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your value is not determined by one person's perception, but by the impact you make and the integrity with which you make it.